huge thank you for having me here today. A big thank you to Glasgow Chamber of Commerce and of course Circular Glasgow as well. I'm Greg Lucas. I'm the IKEA UK and Ireland Sustainability Manager. And I've been with IKEA now about 3.5 years, but have worked with various organisations since about 2006 on sustainability, and then kind of moving in and focusing more on circular business models. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about where we are as IKEA. For those of you who may not know IKEA, we're a home furnishing retailer with a global reach, obviously operating across the UK and Ireland, and with a store within Glasgow as well. One of the key parts, we're a purpose-led organisation, and our vision is to create a better life for the many people. And our vision kind of inspires us in our everyday, in terms of decisions, in terms of the way we work, from working within our units or driving our vehicles for delivery, to designing products, all the way up to, of course, the sustainability function as well. So right across the organisation. And underneath that vision, we have 3 key roads: to affordability, accessibility, and people and planet positive. Kind of 3 other areas that we bring in then kind of below that key purpose-led vision. And when we zoom in a little bit on people and planet positive, our global sustainability strategy, it's broken down into 3 key areas. How can we enable and inspire 1 billion people around the world to live a more healthy and sustainable life? Not an area I'll be delving into in a great detail today. Instead, we'll be going kind of into more of a deep dive around driver 2, circular and climate positive. But it's worth noting as well, we have another area to the strategy around fair and equal. How do we enable a more fair, equal, inclusive society? How do we work with a whole range of different partners to achieve that, and work a lot of our work with charities too? So just moving us on and kind of going into a slightly deeper dive into that second area, you can see circular and climate positive. Our commitment is to become climate positive by reducing greenhouse gases more than the IKEA value chain emits, whilst growing the IKEA business. So if you think kind of big picture, and that's kind of one of the key strategies that we're seeking to enable. And obviously a lot to achieve by 2030. And we're aiming to do that without using offsetting as well, a fairly key point. But I won't dwell too long on climate positive. We'll zoom into the circular area in a moment. And to achieve climate positive, there are a range of kind of different activities and different strategies. One of the main ones for us is to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see that this will be achieved by promoting sustainable consumption and transforming into a circular business, as well as a range of other areas around our movement away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy, continuing energy efficiency, linking waste into our overarching circular strategy as well, and using far more sustainable materials. And I think this might be one of the first times this has been shown, so I thought it might be useful in framing. To start the journey to become climate positive by 2030, we first need to understand, well, where's our climate footprint? Where's our climate footprint across our entire value chain? And this is something we've spent quite some time developing against a 2019 baseline. And I'm sure we could spend quite a lot of time on this slide, but a lot of people, when they start thinking about how do we develop a circular economy, they go immediately to the bottom of this slide and start thinking, well, product end of life, is that really the biggest impact area that we can have? But in fact, of course, prolonging the life of products and materials, giving them a second, third life, utilizing them as spare parts, and ensuring they're effectively recycled and ideally made into new products will also affect the top of the graph there as well in terms of materials, and other aspects as well in terms of production and so on. So it's worth, when starting to explore your circular journeys, it's worth incorporating the whole of the value chain within that for your products or services and the impact that it might have. So finally, I think many of you may be saying we get to delve into circular IKEA and what our circular IKEA strategy is. And kind of aligned with climate positive, circular IKEA is one of the key strategies to become climate positive, along with others as well. But our main commitment is by 2030 to become a circular organization. So this means designing our products from renewable or regenerative materials by 2030 and all of our range, and then providing services to our customers to enable them to be able to pass on, give products a second or third life, as well as kind of developing that infrastructure within IKEA and partnering with others to achieve that. We know that we can't achieve this alone. This is something we need to collaborate and further collaborate and partner on, and building on the partnership with Circular Glasgow and others as well to achieve this. So within this area, there's been a whole raft of transformation within IKEA. For any of you who may have been to the Glasgow store or any of our other stores in the UK, towards the end of your journey at the store, you may have seen an area called Bargain Corner. And within IKEA, we employ about 400 co-workers who work within this area of the store, which we've completely transformed now into what we call our circular hubs. So these 400 co-workers across the UK are there to prolong the life of materials, but equally to start communicating our message around developing a circular economy, both internally within IKEA, and to be able to see products that are either secondhand, that have come back from display, that might have been damaged or returned by customers. And you can see, unfortunately, probably not in any of these images, but in a lot of the circular hubs, we've opened it up. So there's a window into the kind of back area where a lot of our recovery co-workers are there, being able to repair and repurpose and reuse products, repackage them as well. So you can kind of see it all in action. And then those products come out within the circular hub and are available for customers to buy as well. But it doesn't stop there. We've done a lot of work looking at workshops and how we can bring customers along on this journey as well. A good few years ago, when I walked the stores and stopped people and started asking them what their views were in developing a circular economy, there were very, very few who could who properly understood that question. And I can happily say today, with the development of our circular hubs, that there are more and more customers not waiting for me to walk the stores, but getting in touch directly to say this has inspired us to look a bit further, to partake in those workshops that are available at the moment online, or to spend a bit of time in the circular hub looking at the messaging, the videos, and what it is we're trying to achieve by 2030, and really starting to get it and build it together. But the communication element is still an area we're probably on the earlier part of the journey, but hopefully, as you can see, taking some bold steps. It's worth noting that Glasgow's really led the way within this area, and being kind of a pilot for this, being an area that's gone out and engaged the many people around Glasgow City to try and understand what works best, to make a few changes as well. And then whilst there have been a few challenges around face-to-face workshops, we've been able to kind of test key workshops on either repair or a whole host of other areas to get customers kind of engaged in the circular journey with us, and also helping us to co-create parts of this as well. The little green dot that you can see up at the top is an area that's now gone kind of across the store. So the circular hub isn't only just within one area of the store, kind of towards the end of your journey, but is also now kind of there's a clear thread across the store. So customers can now easily identify those products with recycled content or other circular attributes. And it's worth mentioning here that around circular design, and we've obviously changed and updated and evolved our democratic design principles to include circular design now into the design of products, and that's open source, and happy to share a link to the circular design principles. So, and the Circular Hub is a great start, but obviously we're not satisfied with that. We need more services to bring to ensure that products at end of use and end of life are finding their way ideally back to areas where they can quickly be refurbished and checked over from a quality perspective and resold and continue their life. So we've introduced our buyback and resell program this year, and this is where customers can bring back old products. They're able to get hold of a voucher for bringing back their product, which goes, I think, up to about 50% of the original value of the product. That product then goes back to those recovery teams I've just spoken about. And then is obviously checked over. If it can't be resold, it's broken down for spare parts, and I can come back to that. And a lot of IKEA products, if you think of them, someone came up to me the other day and said, I love how some of the products are almost like Lego. You can take a component from here or a spare part from here, which are all freely available, and we'll come to a little bit later on. But this has been greatly appreciated, I think, by many of our customers, and brought in new customers as well who wouldn't ordinarily shop with IKEA. And we've extended this as well through a partnership with Gumtree to then ensure that those products that go back into the Circular Hub can be bought online, especially with many of our stores being closed during the recent pandemic. And spare parts. So we offer free spare parts to all customers through that Circular Hub area and at our returns desks as well, without becoming too geeky around it. There's a huge amount of work that's gone into developing a library of those spare parts and ensuring we have them available for customers. And it's around, bear with me, I think it's about 314,000, over 314,000 spare parts were provided to customers in our financial year 2020. And we don't just use the spare parts with our customers as well. We also use them in store if we're using products for display, and if they're damaged in any way, we can utilize those spare parts again with the fantastic co-workers we have within the Circular Hub. Moving us on. And at end of life, and we've had a fantastic partnership with the reuse network across the UK, with each store having a local charity partner. So for 10 years, we've worked with the reuse network of charities to ensure, as you can see on the right-hand side there, that our products and other retailers' products aren't going to waste, but instead we're able to collect them, store them safely, and ensure reuse through the charity network of partners too. And then that take back service isn't just furniture, it's also been extended to textiles as well. So you can see one example of kind of the little house where you can pop your old textiles in, and that goes to other charity partners, either the YMCA or Bernardes, for a second life or to be responsibly recycled. And then to kind of finish off, and there are a lot of other areas I'd love to discuss as well that may come out in the discussion, and it's almost like the tip of the iceberg, I think, that I've managed to present in a quick summary to you. But for those products that are coming back from customers, we add on, where we can, a pre-loved story. So this will tell the customer to some extent where the product came from, how old it is, where it was first bought, and the stories it's had kind of leading up to the customer then buying it again. And we've had fantastic feedback from our customers who have been involved in this, either providing their stories or other customers looking for second or third hand products that that they're keen to purchase and take home with them. That it allows for that kind of emotional connection as to where the product's been and how it's been used before. So hopefully that provides you with a quick snapshot of some of the areas on our journey so far to become a circular retailer. And it's worth highlighting that Glasgow in particular has been such a fantastic place, not just to develop ideas when we're looking at kind of reigniting the circular strategy through our partnership with Circular Glasgow and the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce and Zero Waste Scotland as well, but also in terms of the many people around Glasgow really embracing, I think, sometimes what might seem slightly out there pilots and tests and taking the time to kind of co-create a lot of those areas with us as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Greg. That was absolutely fantastic, and it's brilliant to see the progress that's been made in the last 2 years since we last worked together in your site in Glasgow, actually. So well done to you and the team for making such powerful progress. Now, we have a number of different questions from the audience, and I think I'm going to start by asking you something more around, you've hinted at the communications you're doing with your customer base in terms of repurposing stories and bringing some personality to that. I'd be really interested to understand, as a global business, with a strong focus on innovative circular business models, how are you educating, particularly your supply chain and also your customers, about what the circular economy is? And it's so much more than recycling and the plastic and all these other different elements that we hear most frequently about. So how are you going about that education process?
Yep, and I probably wouldn't call it an education process. And we're lucky enough to have nearly 12,000 co-workers working for IKEA across the UK. And they're often the starting point, I think, it's far more of a two-way dialogue to co-create this area. You're completely right, Alison, that the communication area is probably one of those areas that hasn't had enough time, I think, to fully develop. So many organizations can develop business cases for new ideas. The technical aspect in terms of closed loop recycling and materials is getting there. The services are starting to become more mainstream. It's not just IKEA. We're seeing many other organizations adopting circular services, and not as an add-on. But the communication element, we still tend to see a lot around recycling or potentially reuse that doesn't necessarily bring in the whole sphere of developing a circular economy, the social benefits, the environmental benefits, the commercial benefits, and beyond as well. So starting with co-workers, I think there's often a lot of co-creation, which is ongoing. It's not something we just do for a moment in time. And then working with customers kind of gave us the permission to be really bold on this. They were really, really keen to find out more. And it was probably the main area in terms of customer feedback that they're keen to hear about these things. They're keen to delve into them a bit more, and they're keen to be part of it as well in terms of co-creating. And that's something in particular we've seen in and around Glasgow and Scotland more broadly. And then with the value chain, I know across the value chain, it's not just customers and co-workers, and working kind of across the supply chain too. There's been far more of a partnership, a collaborative approach in terms of, we have this target, we have to meet this target, this is a huge priority. how together are we going to get there, and what other benefits are you able to bring kind of to the wider circular economy piece, not just through the relationship with IKEA.
Thank you, that's great. And we've got a question in from Molly Ross from the Citizens Theatre. And she's saying, being an inherently unsustainable business and sector, what's been the most difficult part of the journey in transitioning to a circular and climate positive business model?
Hi, Molly. Thanks. Great question. In terms of challenges, and there's probably two key areas, and I'm going to highlight the communication area. There's still very, very few people out there, and we're dedicating a whole part of the store, whole new services to a concept that a lot of customers still don't necessarily grasp, and some customers may purely see it as kind of corporate jargon, or something completely different. So bringing customers kind of on that journey is going to take quite a long time, I think, before there's at least a relative understanding about what the circular economy is looking to achieve. The second area around kind of the key challenges is probably being brave and bold enough around advocating areas to other organizations as well. And this is something internally we've really pushed for all of our work on climate positive to become kind of pre-competitive and to support other organizations in their journeys as well, to become either a circular organization or work towards developing net zero strategies. So whether that's SMEs, whether it's working with the British Retail Consortium on their climate roadmap, and a whole host of other areas, I think that's just starting. But yeah, that's certainly been a challenge I think we're starting to overcome.
And are you finding that there is an appetite in governments, the UK government and globally within the United Nations around circular economy? And I know obviously Scotland has been leading the way, and Ian Gill and his team at Zero Waste Scotland have been doing a remarkable job of taking forward the principles of circular economy into Scotland, which is why we're here today indeed. So are you noticing that appetite is there elsewhere?
Absolutely. I know I probably can't speak from a global perspective. My colleagues over in Sweden are often working kind of at that global level with international bodies. But certainly across the UK and Ireland, whether it's policy, whether it's looking at the fantastic kind of foundation and great work and inspiration that's been delivered through Zero Waste Scotland or Circular Glasgow, and obviously in the lead up to COP26 as well, there's been a real, not just acceptance, I think proactivity to reach out and to say, look, we can see you're part way along in terms of your journey. Where have been your pitfalls? What advice can you give us? And how can we get started around this? So yeah, definitely seeing a step change in terms of momentum building.
And how more effective do you think we all need to be at demonstrating that circular economy is, number one, a really excellent way to be coming out of the pandemic recovery process, and also number two, addressing climate, but specifically enabling people to get to net zero as part of that journey?
Yeah, and it's absolutely key. And it's an area that I think once people start to understand it, it's something that they can involve themselves in. It's something that they can participate in. And the workshop element within the circular hubs, albeit online, and there's been again another learning journey kind of around that, but certainly really seeing that the circular aspect of the journey towards net zero or climate positive is absolutely key. I think there's still a lot more that can be done. I think when I showed the slide around the value chain, that still the mass majority of people, when they start to see that slide, they immediately go to the end of life and go, well, how is that really where our focus should be? Is this where the biggest impact should be? I've seen some amazing work at starting to develop the social KPIs around the circular economy and developing a circular economy. as well as, of course, the environmental KPIs. But I think being able to communicate some of that more widely, I think it's still a fairly small group of individuals, institutions, and businesses that fully understand the benefits and the wider benefits. I think there's still a lot more to be done in terms of gauging that momentum, building on it, and ensuring that the circular economy is at the forefront of that.
Great. Well, we will certainly continue to do all we can through our own networks to do that, because, as I say, from our perspective, we've certainly come into the room, and this is an opportunity for innovation for business, which can generally only be a good thing. Now, we have a question from the floor. Now, I forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's from Chandra Kumar Tivendran. When you increase the product life cycle, how do you manage the impact on financial sustainability and the growth of IKEA?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Hi, Chandra. So in terms of, if we go back up to kind of the big picture climate positive piece, and then delighted to say this is an area we've developed metrics for, we've been working on for quite some time. And I think in 2020, it was the first year that we could see that we had reduced our overall greenhouse gas emissions by over 4%, whilst increasing sales. I think sales not just of products but of services by about 6%. This is on a global basis. So what that starts to show is we're decoupling the dramatic reduction of greenhouse gas emissions needed versus kind of still general commercial growth. So I guess that's the first point. The second point is one that's often raised by other organizations, which is when you start to sell used products, or when you start to give out free components or spare parts, whatever the product might be, how does it cannibalize on your virgin sales, your sales of products with virgin material in it? And I think, and I would encourage organizations to test that on the ground and to test it with their customers. And whether most retailers like it or not, the second-hand market is huge. And whether in Glasgow or in London, one of the things you'll often hear is, well, it's a fraction of the cost, and I can pick it up very quickly, and the quality is just as good. So it doesn't just make sense, I think, from an environmental perspective to be exploring this and mainstreaming this area. It's more around it doing good business is good business at the end of the day. It also brings a commercial element to it as well, and helps to future-proof the business. But again, the communication of that, I think, is really important. Customers in particular are looking for quality, they're looking for a bargain, and if you can tell the story as well of where that product's been, and bring in kind of the second or third life element of it as well, I think that benefits kind of all areas of the circular economy.
Yes, and I think there's something that we're very keen to do as well in due course, is actually something more on the communications opportunity, really, for communications professionals in this, and how do they work with the different sectors in doing just that. And I think it's also probably worth just paying a nod to what you were saying about your open source circular design principles, and it would be brilliant if you are willing to share that. I'm sure all of our delegates will be delighted to see that, and I think the fact that it's open source is so on message with the principles of circular economy. So that would be fantastic. Now, just as a closing remark, is there anything that you're able to share with us around IKEA's journey and the run up to COP and beyond, just as we bring this to a close?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I mentioned in terms of kind of sharing our journey already to help develop and increase the momentum up to COP. Obviously, COP is a key moment in time, but it still is that a moment in time. So we're working, and particularly through the British Retail Consortium, with a range of other retailers to ensure not just it's more rhetoric around commitments, but to ensure that the retail target to net zero that's been set is achieved, and to bring more of the many, I think, on that journey as well. There's obviously a lot of work going on from a policy perspective as well, how we're able to support policymakers in raising awareness around our circular journey, and how we can support them to better understand that. I know that we've done tours of many of our stores, not just with policymakers, but also with schools and with the next generation as well. And COP provides us with a great opportunity to stop and reflect on the next generation of leaders that are coming into businesses, coming into the workplace, and their role within that as well. So yeah, I won't dwell too much, but there's a lot going on, I think, across a whole range of different stakeholder groups. And we're obviously really looking forward to seeing and hearing more from Glasgow in the run up to November.
Fantastic. Well, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us here again this morning. As I said at the outset, this whole session has been recorded, so there's an opportunity to dial back in if you've missed any of the sessions this morning at all, and I'm sure there will be other people who want to dial in to see what IKEA has been doing. So thank you so much for doing that for us today.